What if I told you some of Hollywood's most famous faces were once living completely different lives? Lives that didn't match who they truly were inside. Behind the fame, behind the spotlight, there are stories of identity, struggle, courage, and transformation that changed everything. Today, we're uncovering the powerful journeys of celebrities who rewrote their identities and shocked the world. Some of these stories are inspiring, some are heartbreaking, and one will truly leave you speechless. ANDREJA PEJIĆ, Beauty Beyond Boundaries. ANDREJA PEJIĆ. Before the world knew her as ANDREJA, she was already turning heads in the fashion industry, a rare presence, an androgynous beauty, walking both men's and women's runways, effortlessly blurring the lines of gender. Designers loved it. The industry was fascinated. But behind the success, there was a deeper truth waiting to be lived. Growing up between war-torn Bosnia and later Australia, ANDREJA always felt different. There was comfort in femininity, but confusion in identity. And while fashion celebrated her uniqueness, it couldn't replace authenticity. Then in 2014, everything changed. ANDREJA made the courageous decision to transition, a moment that could have ended her career, but instead redefined it. She didn't disappear from the spotlight. She owned it, becoming one of the first openly transgender models to appear on major magazine covers like Vogue and GQ. Her journey sent a powerful message. You don't have to fit into the world's definition to be accepted. Sometimes you redefine it. Caitlyn Jenner, a global moment. Caitlyn Jenner. Before the world knew Caitlyn, they knew Bruce Jenner, an Olympic champion, a global hero, winning gold at the 1976 Olympics and becoming a symbol of strength and success. But even at the peak of fame, there was a private battle no one could see. From a young age, there were questions, feelings that didn't match expectations, moments of confusion hidden away. And for decades, those feelings stayed buried, behind marriages, behind fame, behind the image the world celebrated, until it could no longer stay hidden. At the age of 65, Caitlyn Jenner made one of the most public and talked about transitions in history. The world watched. Some were shocked, some were supportive, some didn't understand. But one thing was undeniable. It was courageous. Her Vanity Fair cover in 2015 was more than a reveal. It was a cultural moment, a statement, a shift in awareness, a reminder that it's never too late to become who you truly are. CHAZ BONO, From Silence to Self. CHAZ BONO, born into one of the most iconic families in entertainment. As the child of Cher, CHAZ BONO's life was always in the public eye. But behind the cameras, there was a quiet, deeply personal struggle. From an early age, something didn't feel right. He followed expectations, wore the clothes, played the role the world expected, but inside, it never fit. Like living someone else's life. For years, that feeling grew stronger. Confusing, isolating, heavy, and imagine dealing with that while the entire world is watching you. Then came the turning point. In the late 2000s, CHAZ made the life-changing decision to transition. It wasn't just a personal choice, it was a public moment that sparked global conversations. Through hormone therapy and surgery, he finally began to feel aligned, inside and out. But he didn't stop there. CHAZ stepped into Hollywood again, this time as his true self. Breaking barriers, becoming one of the first openly transgender men to play male roles in mainstream television. And perhaps one of the most powerful parts of his journey was acceptance. Even his mother, Cher, openly shared her emotional journey of understanding and support. A reminder that growth doesn't just happen within us, it happens around us too. Laverne Cox, from pain to power. Laverne Cox. Before the fame, before the awards, there was pain. Growing up in Alabama, Laverne Cox knew from a very young age she was different. Not just different in personality, but different in a way the world around her didn't accept. She was drawn to femininity, to expression, to being herself. And for that, she was bullied, relentlessly, mocked, rejected, isolated. At just a young age, the pressure became unbearable. There was a moment, a dark moment, where she almost gave up completely. But she didn't. That moment didn't end her story. It transformed it. Laverne found her escape in art, in dance, in expression. And slowly, she began building herself back up, piece by piece. After moving to New York, she embraced her true identity. No more hiding, no more pretending. And then came her breakthrough. Her role in Orange is the New Black didn't just make her famous, it made history. She became one of the first openly transgender women to be nominated for a Primetime Emmy. But more importantly, she gave visibility to millions of people who had never seen themselves represented before. Today, Laverne Cox isn't just an actress. She's a voice, a symbol, a survivor. Carmen Carrera, breaking labels. Carmen Carrera for many. Carmen Carrera was first seen as a performer, a standout presence on RuPaul's Drag Race, known for beauty, confidence, and unforgettable energy. But what the world saw was only part of the story. Because behind the performances, behind the makeup, there was a deeper truth waiting to be fully lived. After gaining attention from the show, Carmen made a decision that would change everything. She transitioned, not just privately, but in front of millions. And that came with a price. Some fans struggled to understand. Some refused to accept. Many couldn't separate the performer from the person. But Carmen stood firm. She wasn't here to fit expectations. She was here to be real. And in doing so, she became more than just a reality TV star. She became a voice, speaking out about respect, about identity, about the language people use. Because sometimes the hardest part of transformation isn't becoming yourself, it's being accepted as who you already are. Fallon Fox, fighting beyond the cage. Fallon Fox. Some battles happen in the spotlight, and some happen deep within. For Fallon Fox, it was both. From an early age, she knew she didn't feel like other boys. There was a disconnect, a quiet truth that she kept hidden for years, because the world around her wasn't ready. Her family struggled to understand. Society pushed back. And at one point, she was forced into conversion therapy. Imagine that. Being told you need to be fixed for simply being yourself. But Fallon didn't break. She endured. And eventually, she chose to live her truth. Transitioning wasn't easy. It came with pain, sacrifice, and uncertainty. But what came next shocked everyone. She entered one of the toughest sports in the world, mixed martial arts. And not quietly, but as the first openly transgender fighter in MMA history. The backlash was immediate. Criticism, controversy, debates about fairness. But Fallon kept fighting. Not just opponents, but perceptions. Because for her, this wasn't just about sport. It was about belonging and proving that identity does not define capability. Jazz Jennings, a child who changed the conversation. Jazz Jennings. Some people discover who they are later in life. But Jazz Jennings? She knew, almost instantly. At just a few years old, Jazz was already expressing something very clear. I am a girl, even though the world told her otherwise. Imagine having that level of clarity as a child, correcting adults, questioning reality, hoping, wishing that one day things would match how you feel inside. And unlike many others, Jazz had something powerful: support. Her family listened, they learned, they stood by her, and that changed everything. By the age of 6, Jazz was already speaking publicly about her journey, appearing in interviews, sharing her truth with the world. Not as a celebrity, but as a child trying to be understood. As she grew older, she didn't step away from the spotlight. She stepped deeper into it, becoming one of the youngest voices advocating for transgender awareness. Through television, interviews, and activism, Jazz helped millions understand something they never had before. Her story isn't just about identity, it's about courage at an age when most are still figuring out who they are. ERVIN, standing tall in every way. ERVIN at 6 feet 8 inches tall. ERVIN was impossible to ignore. Even before her transition, she stood out in every room. But being seen doesn't always mean being understood. Before becoming ERIKA, she lived in a world that didn't quite know where to place her. Different, unique, unusual. Words that followed her everywhere. But instead of shrinking herself, she did the opposite. She embraced it. And when she chose to transition, she didn't step back from the spotlight. She stepped further into it, breaking records as one of the tallest professional models in the world, and later, appearing in American Horror Story, where her presence became unforgettable. But her journey wasn't just about visibility, it was about ownership. Owning her identity, owning her space, owning her truth, and proving that being different isn't a weakness, it's power. These stories aren't just about change, they're about courage. Because behind every transformation, there is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of losing everything. And yet, they chose truth anyway. Some faced acceptance, some faced backlash, some had support, others had to stand alone. But every single one of them made a choice to live honestly, to live fully, to live as themselves. And maybe that's the real story here. Not fame, not headlines, not controversy, but courage. Because in a world that constantly tells you who to be, choosing who you truly are might be the bravest thing of all.